Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Tucker Bearden here with me today. How you doing, Tucker?
I'm doing wonderful. I love that intro, man.
For
That
sure.
was cool.
Yeah, for sure. Give us a nice little introduction to who I am and what we're doing here.
All right. Well, my name is Tucker Bearden. I'm a certified Ziegler Legacy anxiety expert and Asperger's advocate and professional keynote speaker. I travel around the country and I talk to people about autism and share the stories of my journey and the things that I went through and because I have a neurological abnormality known as Asperger's. It hinders one's natural ability to understand social cues as well as emotional responses and things of that nature. If you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon has Asperger's.
Wow.
Yeah, so that really kind of sums it up for people. Lets them kind of understand he's supposed to be the worst it can possibly get. So I'm not that bad. But I used to have life-threatening panic attacks just being around, just trying to have a conversation with people. And now I'm blessed to be able to share stages with people like Les Brown and Tom Ziegler and Brian Tracy and things of that nature. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm blessed to be here now with you, Cedric. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's stories like yours that really inspire your neighbor. It inspires your local city council. It inspires children and adults. And so I'm very happy to have you here with us today. And I want to kind of rewind it a little bit back to the very beginning. I want people to understand exactly how you became the illustrious speaker that you are today, the professional that you are today, and give us some context. What was your childhood like?
Well, I come from the backwoods of Arkansas, so I was raised in a little place that's 52 miles from the closest town and hard to find on Google.
Wow. Well, hold on. What are the backwoods? And what was the name of that backwood area that you grew up in Arkansas?
Well, I mean, so the backwoods is just like I know, like most of your viewers are from the city, so I guess for y'all, the backwoods would just be somewhere where you could shoot a gun in any direction and not hit a house. Um, we're talking a lot of. I mean, we were 52 miles from your closest town. So yeah, it's just deep in the woods, I guess is what you would just call it. I was raised on the Arkansas River, a little place. If you were to actually try and find it on Google, it was called Rising Star Camping Grounds. And then I went to school. I went to school in a little bitty town with one stoplight called Star City, and then I ended up. The reason that I'm here today is like I actually ended up making some very bad choices when I was younger, like most people do.
Well. To your credit, when you're living in the middle of nowhere, no offense to anybody, but one's mind can wonder.
That it can. So yeah, I had a lot of social issues whenever I was younger, and I still do, but they were really very apparent whenever I was younger. I didn't making friends was a daunting task. I honestly, I, I wouldn't wish it on anybody the way that it went for me. It was always a battle between like trying to impress someone so they'd be my friend, or trying to do something for someone so they'd be my friend, but then not understanding the actual social construct itself.
Mhm.
So it always would collapse. But I ended up getting into selling a lot of weed and other things, and I ended up getting kicked out of my house, which was a curse and a blessing in disguise because you can't see the stars until the darkness comes. All right, yeah. So I ended up. There was a long journey where I was staying with my dad. I was like, it was this it was bad. I'm just gonna put when it came to me and my daddy. I love him to death, but he at that time he was a dangerous alcoholic, and I know that a lot of folks viewing this probably know what happens behind the scenes there. So I ended up leaving from there and going to um, work with horses. I found a job working with thoroughbred race horses, and then it gave me an outlet for the first time in my life. Like I actually had a connection to something. When it came to the horses, I could feel what they feel, and come
Really?
to find, yeah, it was crazy. And it still I do with animals, of a strange connection with animals. And come to find out, most people with autism do this, and especially people with Asperger's, they have a higher in tune sense with animals. And like with the horses, we found that I could lay my hands on them and they would relax, and in a relaxed horse will generally do what you want it to,
Hmm.
um, versus the latter, which can become dangerous quickly.
So,
So
so
yeah,
you had your childhood was basically a traumatic experience because you had a social challenge that was hard to it was hard for others to deal with, and then it became hard for you to deal with. And it sounds
yeah.
like you really didn't have very many people in your village, if you will. How many friends did you have as a child? I'm trying to paint this picture in my mind of the area where
So
you grew up, and I'm thinking like there's your house and like some grass around it, and maybe not even the greenest grass, and not another house for a while. So I'm thinking, how
all
did
right,
you grow up?
so I ramble. I have a tendency to ramble. I'm sorry. So I got a little off track. All right. So whenever I was little, I mean, just imagine, um, it's an old dirt road. I mean, we were literally, you come off of a levee and there was an old dirt road, and you come through, there's through the woods. And then when the woods open up, we had a little trailer on the left. And then a few blocks down, there was another trailer. And, and then like a mile or so down the road, there was some guy's house.
So
And
y'all
on that,
basically you basically were living on a campground.
I mean, it's not. There was a campground next to it, but it's what city folk would consider to be a campground. But for
Okay.
us, it was just home. And we, it was literally like the Arkansas River is here, and your house is right here. Like we
Right.
had a dock that went down to the water.
I
Um,
mean, in a sense, on one hand, it would seem like you guys were kind of like not very wealthy, but in another sense, you guys were very wealthy because you're living right there by the water. I'm sure you guys could use that water to either swim, catch fish, or have fun, and so or just a flat out water source. And so somebody might have a mansion next to the beach. Well, you had a trailer next to the river, and so even though people might not be able to see it straight out, you still have some pretty cool experiences around there,
oh yeah.
I would imagine.
So, oh yeah, man. As a kid, I honestly like one of my goals in life, one of my biggest goals in life is to make enough money, and create enough residual income to actually get a like go home. And
Mm.
because at the end of the day, I notice this, the more I'm in the city and the more I'm around city people, like I realize that they don't have a clue what freedom looks like. They have
Mhm.
no idea. Like this, it's like the city's like a prison. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a construct that you have to follow. And I mean, out there, like here in the city, here, like folks pay they pay hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for a few acres, and they feel like they got something. Like when you go down home, you're talking miles, on miles of woods. Like you can't walk them all, you can't ride them all. Most people've never. Most there's places out there that people've never walked.
Wow.
And you can get, I mean, and that's home, you know what I mean? And then you come to the city and they give you a yard to mow. Like what?
Right.
And then
And so you were able to have a peace of mind out there that a large percentage of our country will never understand.
yeah, it's man, it's going back to your roots. I
Yeah.
mean, like how often do you get to go barefoot and go walking through the woods out your back door? And
Right.
I mean, if you ain't don't nobody gripe about you having guns, and
Right.
like if you want if you need fresh meat, it's literally off your back porch.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I mean,
What did you guys? What did I want to know? How old were you when you started hunting?
like four.
Who taught you how to hunt?
My uncle Harry.
And what did he
Well,
teach you? What did he teach you how to use? A knife, a gun, a shotgun, a bow and arrow?
everything.
Wow.
Everything. So my first hunting rifle was a 223.
Okay.
It was a little bitty compact 223, and my first deer I did kill from a deer stand. We weren't tracking. My first deer was a doe, and I shot her at 178 yards. Yeah,
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah. So yeah, that was, and then I mean, we there ain't nothing we don't hunt. We don't hunt bear. Ain't really no reason to.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to kill them anyway.
Right. Yeah. That's also a majestic creature. And I've heard bear meat was kind of greasy, and you feel like you're eating something you shouldn't be eating.
I ain't never ate it. I've come face to face with bear in the woods, but I've never had a problem, and I've never had any. It's like shooting a giant dog.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Did you now when it came to the bear, did you play dead or did you have a defensive tactic?
no, our bear, we have them little bitty brown bear
Mhm.
that when they stand up on their hind legs, at most they might be 8 feet tall. Like
Okay.
or like they're not like a big old grizzly bear or whatever. Um, like they would be what most people would probably think is a baby bear, but it's not.
Hmm.
And
Right.
they're not really aggressive from what I've seen. I've never seen them attack anybody around down home. They generally they might get curious and walk up and kind of twitch their ears and look at you a little bit like a curious dog, but they're just hungry.
Mhm.
They ain't there to hurt nobody. You just
Right.
give them something to eat and let them go on their way.
You know, I am right now. I'm fascinated by your childhood. I'm fascinated at the overall freedom and the experience that you had in nature. I think that's incredible, and I wish more people could have that growing up. And that's why I said, a few minutes ago that all those things amount to a great quality of life. You know, did you have brothers and sisters?
Well, I had a sister that came along a little later, um, that I grew up with, but we weren't like, we didn't play and stuff together. It wasn't like that. She has her world and I have mine. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm the kid that would go out in the woods when the sun came up, and sometimes I wouldn't come out until it came up again.
Right. Wow.
I mean, and she's got her dolls and whatever she
Right.
played with.
Right.
I
And where was your mom and dad at during these years?
don't know.
You don't know.
Nah, bro. So
It's your Uncle Harry.
yeah, my uncle Harry and my aunt Teresa raised me. They was basically my mom and dad. Now, my mama, I don't have a clue where she was.
Okay.
That's a long story right there. I only met her once, and it was a short period of time in my life. It was not good. So, but my daddy, I ain't 100% sure where he was or what he's doing, but I know he was living in Arkansas. I got to see him every now and then. He was just doing the best he could. I hold nothing against him. I
Hmm.
mean, it was better the way it was, because Aunt Teresa and Uncle Harry, well, they wasn't poor by any means. I mean, we
Right.
had a boat and a jet ski and like fishing poles and and worms. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the things you need to have a decent life. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like I mean, he every year for Christmas I got a machete and a gun,
Right.
so like and a can of Bush's baked beans. And one,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was my thing when I was little. You could get me to do anything with some Bush's baked beans.
Right. So, I want to know. So then, with all this going on outside, school must have been a little bit of a drag for you, or maybe it wasn't. Tell me what
No,
school was like for you.
it was a living hell,
Yeah.
straight up. I hated it, and if I could go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't, but if I could, I know things would be different because I understand more about social construct now and how people function. Where back then I had no social skills. I still have a really big trouble understanding certain facial expressions and certain tones and I don't really catch sarcasm. I had a guy tell me one time, "Man, get out of here," and I got up and left.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right. Right.
like straight up. I
Right.
mean, because I didn't. I have a list in my head
Uh-huh.
of that I've memorized. Okay, if I hear this, they're being sarcastic because it just I don't know. It don't click with me. But in school, it was. There was nothing good about it. There was not. I don't mean to make a pity story, but
Right.
I,
No, ain't
it
no
was
pretty story here.
it was horrible, man. I used to I in the process of trying to make friends, I got bullied so bad at one point they poured gasoline all over me and chased me through the woods with Roman candles. Like
Wow.
they used to tear my shirts off and everything, and my house was right next to the school, so like people would break into my house and destroy my stuff, and it was like I keyed my vehicle when I got one, yeah, and like
Mhm.
dump buckets of crap in it, and like it just it was bad, man. I always just thought that people were evil, like I genuinely believed growing up until I found the self development industry. I thought people were just naturally evil, and
Wow.
that good people were rare.
Hmm. And so while you were living your life, minding your business, and pretty much making the best of what you had, whether it be the jet ski, the outdoors, you were a young outdoorsman. But you discovered that there were other people in your community who they just didn't have savory character, and so you had an experience just like a lot of other young people have an experience where you're being attacked by your peers, and that's a very real thing that we face out here in the world, whether it be bullying or just having peers that are not friendly. And so I want to take this couple seconds to see if you could provide any encouragement to a parent who might be raising a young child who might have Asperger's, a young boy or a young girl. Would you have any advice for them at this time?
So at the end of the day, one of the things I realized growing up, my little pit bull's right here. But he's trying to get on camera, but he's too big. but, but what I realized is, and I wish I would have realized this whenever I was younger. It would have changed things for me, and that is that the people in this world that deserve kindness the least are the ones who need it the most. When people are uh, when people are abusing you physically, mentally, or verbally, it's it's a reflection on how they're feeling in that day for some reason.
Hmm.
Something's they're suffering in some way, and you can take anger, getting angry at someone for something they've said or done is equivalent to drinking poison and hoping it kills your enemy.
Right.
So my advice would be to, if you have a child that's on the spectrum, my biggest advice with you is do not, under any circumstance, shelter this kid, let them push them outside of their comfort zone, because if you don't, they're not going to be able to grow. The problem with, like, with me, I think one of the reasons my social uh, skills were so bad was because, like, there weren't really other kids where I grew up originally. Like, when I was little, I spent my time by myself in the woods, and oftentimes, like, my where some people would feel like maybe get scared for their child doing it. My Aunt Teresa and Uncle Harry, they were wise enough to know that you can leave me out in the woods, and, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, I mean, nothing.
Right.
So I mean, I would go out there and I'd spend my nights looking at the stars and listening to the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and and I didn't spend my days playing with kids, you know. So maybe that was where that comes from. I'm not sure, but for parents that have children on the spectrum, or someone who has Asperger's and is having challenges, um, just don't let them give up, because it's very likely that at some point they're going to break if
Right.
you don't push them outside of their comfort zone. It's required. Growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So for me, I growth didn't happen for me, and I wasn't able to break that paradigm until I started making myself go to Walmart and the mall and places like that and talking to random people. Like, I broke my paradigm by giving pizzas out to homeless people. I would ride around town on my bicycle and take a pizza and hand it to a homeless person, then sit down beside them and say, "Hey, tell me your story, brother. Share some wisdom with me."
Right.
And in doing that, I learned that anxiety was in the mind. It was never in the diagnosis.
Right.
You can never allow someone else's definition, someone else's observations of you to define you or control your life. And
I
and
agree.
that's the paradigm shift that you have to make. I mean, because people who suffer from social anxiety and and just because it's not just people with Asperger's. There are people people all over the world suffer from social anxiety, and most of it comes from things like this. Not your show, but Facebook. I mean, like, people are so disconnected. It's because it's a social network that socially disconnects
Right.
people. So it's like, um, uh, I forgot. I had an old saying. I had a saying about that, but but when it comes to social anxiety, your freedom lies on the other side of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that seems cheesy, but there's genuinely a veil that you have to pass through, and the reason people continuously suffer from social anxiety is because they create tethers. Like, I have a book that's coming out soon that's about all of this, and
Okay.
it's called
What's the name of your book?
it's the plate that broke the world,
Okay.
and it's about all of this. And, like, so social anxiety derives from two things. It derives from a loop that's created in the mind,
Mm-hmm.
and tethers that are created in the mind,
What's
false
a
tethers.
tether? What's a
So
tether?
a tether is something in the mind that connects one thing to another.
Okay.
But the thing is that in majority of situations, the tethers aren't real. So what happens for people when they have it? Because I used to have panic attacks that were so bad I'd end up in the hospital. Like, actually, I had one the other day, about 2 days ago. They still happen, but not as often.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what happens for people is that they begin telling a story in their mind. There's a loop that they create. There are three things. If you ever catch yourself thinking these three things, stop. And that is shoulda, coulda, or woulda. You ever got caught? You ever caught yourself stuck in one of those loops where you're sitting there thinking about maybe a bout you had with somebody, and you're like, man, ugh, I could have hit him in the throat. Man, I could. I should have said this.
Right.
You know, and then you replay it in your head, and you're like, oh yeah, if this happens again, this is how I'm gonna do it. Yeah, whatever. It might even be a conversation with somebody. It might be. It just like all these any scenario that you can play where you think about something you should have done, something you could have done, or something you would have done. If you allow it to create a loop, that loop goes into an infinity loop, and then what happens is as you focus on that, your brain, your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's really happening and what you're imagining. So it begins re-experiencing that scenario, and in turn flooding the system with a chemical known as cortisol. Now, cortisol not only shuts off your immune system, but causes your brain to begin creating more negative emotions to help stimulate the negative experience. Now, so have you ever noticed whenever you start thinking about one argument you had with somebody, 30 minutes later, it's like getting on YouTube. You end up at cat videos that have nothing to do with it. You end up on a thought that has nothing to do as a negative memory from something that has nothing to do with what you just were originally thinking about. And then you go home and have an argument with your spouse, or you go to work and have a bad day. And you wonder why, and you say, "Oh well, I just ain't had a cup of coffee." Come on,
right. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that if you don't establish a sense of direction in your life, and that sense of direction is not positive, that you can automatically or unknowingly put yourself in a cycle of depression and anxiety that will continue on until you decide to break it. So it gets down to being able to control yourself, basically.
It does, but when it comes to social anxiety and people that are suffering with this specifically, just remember, you have to remember that no matter, first of all, one of the big things is this: you got to admit that it's you, because that's one of the things that I've noticed a lot with people with Asperger's that I work with, and people with social anxiety, is they genuinely, a lot of them genuinely believe, because some psychiatrist or doctor has told them something crazy, that they believe that there is a chemical imbalance in their brain that is irreversible without some kind of medication or something. That specific belief, if you have that belief, you have no hope. You have to break that belief, because your brain is a computer that will run the program that you design it to run. That's what my book, that's one of the things that's in my book, The Plate That Broke the World. And that, so you have to learn to break the loop. You cannot allow those tethers, the connections, the false connections to things. Like I used to have this loop while walking through places. For some reason, I still don't like big open spaces, but I used to have a fear of big open spaces. And when there were other people in my mind was telling me that they were somehow like whispering about me to their friend, or saying something hateful, because that's what happens at school. And like I was creating all these false tethers. They didn't exist. And I was making all these connections that didn't exist, and then allowing the loop to start. And once it starts, it's hard to break. You have to put your foot down, and because your mind wants to finish the story.
Right. Yeah. And it gets to the point where we all have to take accountability for the fact that we have a higher self and a lower self, and you're not just a body, and what you're saying is that you have to essentially be your own social engineer. You have to engineer the life that you're going to live, and nobody could just walk around letting the world happen to them. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to jump into the driver's seat of your own life, jump into the driver's seat of your own body, and manage yourself, manage the things that you think about yourself, manage the impressions that are upon you and the impressions that you make upon the world. There's a really big job for you to do as a human being, and that is to operate your faculties and to effectively manage your environment. So I'm having a great conversation with you today, and it's been very brilliant so far. I'm looking forward to the second half of this conversation. If you've just tuned in, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Tucker Building. This gentleman has a very, very, very interesting life story. It's been fascinating so far, and I look forward to you being here for the second half. Thanks a lot. We'll be right back after this brief message. America's Next Motivator. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator. Hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. You know, Tucker, all I hear from you is that you're a genius. That's all I hear. I know that there could be some symptoms that exist, but I don't want to minimize, the Asperger's condition, and I want you to teach me more about it as well in this conversation. But based on the way that I see things and my different type of world, all I see is somebody who you had a great imagination when you were younger. You were ostracized because of the life that you were living. And then you decided to elevate yourself instead of being critical about the world around you. You decided to elevate yourself. So you might have, started selling some weed and stuff like that. And maybe we can cover some of that too. But what I'm hearing is that you said, hey, I need to work on myself. And in order for you to work on yourself, you started serving others by giving out pizzas and starting conversations, forcing yourself to go to the Walmart. Your auntie and uncle didn't say, hey, Tucker, get in this car. We're taking you to the Walmart so that you can grow up. You took yourself to the Walmart. You took yourself to the mall. You started having random conversations with people and just asking for wisdom. And those things amounted to you going on a journey that allowed you to ultimately evolve. I think every single person on a planet Earth needs to do something similar to what you've done. And so I want to commend you for that. I want to commend you for that today.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, man. And one of the things that I want to note on something that you said it's paramount for people, and that is service. I had an old mentor named Manny Lopez, and he always talks about serve your way to success. And when I first discovered came upon the self-development industry is while I was working with horses. I was working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and I was making less than $200 a week. But I didn't care. I loved the horses, and I was at peace with them. But I lived in a little concrete room. Everybody did there, and you work all day and you go there. So you had to find a way to entertain yourself. I was trying to find free movies on YouTube, and I ended up coming across a TED Talk called "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek, and then that led me to find Zig Ziglar, and Zig Ziglar said, "You can have anything in this world you want if you're only willing to help enough other people get what they want."
Who is Zig Ziglar?
Zig Ziglar, he was one of the greatest public speakers that ever lived. I'm a certified Ziglar legacy. So I represent, that means like Tom Ziglar and his family, they reached out to me, and they flew me down to they got me down to Texas, and they sent me through their training and everything. And I represent the Ziglar Foundation, and when I speak from stage, they stand behind me. So basically, when I come to stage, people, there it's a quality of speaking. It's an expectation. I mean, like, so if you're a certified Ziegler Legacy, you're expected to already to perform above average. So as a speaker, there was the training and the course and everything. Like there's not very many Ziegler Legacies in the world, but the training and course was on a lot of different things. But what Tom Ziegler told me was that he didn't bring me in for the training. He brought me in because he wanted to see me from he wanted to support me from stage, it was really an honor because Zig Ziglar is the one that changed my life. You know,
Wow.
it was a blessing. I mean, really, because like whenever you get if somebody calls and they say hello, this is Tom Ziegler, you're like, no, it's not. like,
Right.
that's like that's like when you get a phone call and it's like, hello, this is Les Brown, and you're like, are you sure? uh,
So how did it feel when you started to have this breakthrough because you were beginning to speak and tell your story effectively? How did it feel when you started connecting with people who were positive and who could help you get your life into a better position?
it felt like life. It
Wow.
it felt like living for the first time in my life. I was alive. It was like for the first time. It's like living in a city of smog your whole life, and then for the first time getting to experience the air in the Rocky Mountains. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me. In turn, I've been able to bless people all over the world uh, because of the things that I've learned from this, and I've gotten to speak on stages around the country and to thousands and thousands of people, and it's just I love more than anything to step off that stage and you just see like when you're up there you can when you look out in the crowd there's certain moments when people's eyes light up and you realize that you've made an impact on that person's life that's going to ripple throughout the ages, and that's really what the goal is like I don't care if I get paid to speak. I've went broke to go to events and speak just because it's not about the income. It's genuinely about the impact. And when that shift happened, where there was I went from terrified to talking to people to inspired to speak to people. It was a complete and total paradigm shift. Like my life flip flopped upside down. I went from being the kid that nobody liked and nobody wanted to be around to now whenever I get off stage, I get like 3 and 5 and 15 minute standing ovations and stuff, and it's like, all right, but it's not about the standing ovations and all that kind of stuff. But you got to look at why that happens. It's because you create what's called generational change when you impact someone and you inspire them in a way to where they're going to go home and inspire someone in a way that's going to make them go out and inspire.
Mhm.
That that's really what it's all about, and it's honestly I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I tell people all the time from stage, you look, your past doesn't define you, but it does refine you. Without your darkness, the light holds absolutely no value. Pain is part of the process. So as hard as it is to do whenever the times are the hardest for you, just give thanks for it because because those times always come with blessings following them. Always, you if you have a time where your business is having trouble, as long as you stick to your program and you stick to your guns and you just keep pushing, at some point you're going to break that barrier. You're going to step across the veil. Lauren Harris, he that's something that he talks about a lot. He's in
You're talking about Lauren Michaels Harris.
Yes, Lauren Michaels Harris is my speaking coach. He
Okay.
actually is the one that put me on stage for the first time in Vegas,
Wow.
and he speaks about stepping through the veil a lot, and I would highly advise checking him out. He's got some really great content. Um, But that's it. That transition was the biggest game changer in my life. It's the only reason I met my fiance Sarah. But I met her at a conference. I was giving a keynote at the Habitude Warrior conference, and she was one of the helpers there. Everything great came from the self development industry, and oh man, I'm so blessed and thankful that there are people out there but the world isn't evil and people aren't bad. People just have bad days.
Yep, yep. Do you have any books that you could recommend to young adults out there, or even full grown adults? We're talking about 30 and 40-year-olds who want to make their life a better thing. Do you have any books that you could recommend to them?
So absolutely. So let me see. I actually have a list. I keep a list of all the books that I read. I try to read at least one a day or every 2 days.
Okay.
These are wrong notes. So first of all, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. But I know that everybody in the self development industry knows about that one. That's
Okay.
what everybody always goes to. But a few really great ones that no one really talks about, but I think people should really read, and especially if you have anxiety issues. I was The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by
Okay.
Dan Millman. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a great book. It's a true story. I would highly advise reading it. It's basically about a journey of inner peace and unlocking what we call satori or being in the moment. Another great one that it's a little hard to read, but it's called the Kabbalion
How do you
by
spell Pollyon?
it's Kyballion, and it's by the Three Initiates. It's a bit of a long one,
Okay.
but it's a book on hermetic principles. That's a
Mhm.
really good one. Another great one is How to Analyze People on Sight by Elsie Lincoln Benedict and Ralph Payne Benedict. That's a really good book.
What's the name of it again?
How to Analyze People on Sight. It goes
Okay.
over the different body types of people
Mhm.
and the facial structures of people, and then how to take it gives you the information to look at someone, analyze them, and get a roundabout consensus of how to approach them and their attitude in general. It seems really stereotypical, but the book's really cool. I would highly advise everybody reading it, and I have never heard anybody suggest it from stage or from a podcast, and it's amazing.
Mhm.
Uh, Very hard to read though. You're just gonna take. It's one of those ones you have to study because it's packed full of information, not stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an information book, so you have to read it with a different intention. It's not necessarily
Mhm.
for entertainment, but it's an example of something that you can read to get past and beyond the veil. And so,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing is that reading was a big part of your effort to grow into the Tucker that we see today. Reading,
Yes, sir.
and unbeknownst to you, you were also a horse whisperer.
I
Do you
wouldn't call
still?
it a horse whisperer, but I mean, I can definitely, um, I can communicate with them without talking to them. It's weird, but
Do you still work with horses today?
anytime I get a chance, I don't
Wow.
have time. I'm in Kirby now. Like I sell Kirby home maintenance systems,
Okay.
so I work almost every like 6 to 7 days a week, and if I every time I get a chance to put my hands on a horse, I do. I love them to death. I mean they I think every person should work with horses at some point in their life because they help you discover who you are,
Right.
in a sense. Like I wouldn't emotionally be the man that I am today if I wasn't for those animals and the fact that they have a sixth sense that's so strong that even if you don't outwardly show you're in a bad mood, they know it and they'll pick on you for it. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Wow. And if I'm hearing you correctly, these days you sell home management systems by Kirby.
Kirby home maintenance systems,
Okay,
like the Kirby vacuum. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, we've been around 107 years, and we have no competition. So it's not very. So most people have heard of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah. What's that like for you?
I mean, it's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
Honestly, I love it. I mean, it's the best sales training in the world. I mean, you can't find a more in depth sales training. I mean, you're going door to door all day, every day, going in people's houses of every different shape, size, color, and type, and
Right.
you're engaging with everybody and learning how to communicate with people. So as an ASPE, it's an addiction because I'm learning communication on a next level. So and that's always been my greatest challenge is just properly communicating with people, and I'm blessed to be able to do it. I'm actually getting paid what I feel I'm worth for once in my life. You know,
Hmm.
when I worked on the farm, the most I ever saw in a week was $500, and here I've walked away with $2,800 paychecks in a week. So it's like I get is for a country boy from Arkansas, you put $1,000 on the table. I used to be like, oh my God, you're rich. What is
Right.
that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and now we have the potential to go out and make that in a day. Like what?
Yeah.
Hey, you talk about retained.
Right.
Um, you couldn't beat me away from Kirby with a flaming stick.
Right. What are the top three things that you've learned in sales that you can share today?
All right, I can share whatever. I love sharing knowledge, man. So one of the biggest things that you got to remember is whoever asks the most questions controls the conversation. Whoever controls the conversation is the one that's going to win. And another thing, because so for that, sales is all psychology. I mean, so no matter whether you're trying to get a mate or you're trying to sell a product or you're just trying to convince somebody to do something, one of the things, if you pay close attention, what you'll notice is the person that's controlling the conversation is the one that ends up getting you to do what they want. So ask a lot of questions whenever, and you want to ask questions you already know the answer to that program your customer to say yes. Their job is to say no. Your
Mhm.
job is to make them say yes. So I mean, if I asked you, Cedric, I said, hey, let me say something simple. Like, would you agree that what goes up always?
Comes down.
See how I did that?
Yeah.
So I got you to say that. Now that's a simple concept, but that's what sales is.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, you get more questions. So one of the things I do with my customers, I pull dirt up and I show them. I say I pull a pad that's got dirt on the floor, and I pull a dirt off the top of their ceiling fan. And I say, can we agree these look pretty similar?
Hmm.
Yeah. So if this condition's on the floor and it's on the ceiling, Mr. Cedric, can't we agree it's probably in the air?
Right.
And if it's in the air, it's in our lungs, right?
Hmm.
And if it's in our lungs, it's definitely a priority to get out of the home, isn't it?
Yep.
So when you make major home appliance purchases like the stove or the when you make major home appliance purchases like the stove or the refrigerator, do you normally put it on cash, check, credit card, or easy monthly investments?
Any of the four.
All right, I'm gonna get you a receipt and I'll be right back.
That's right.
Now
Wow.
you see how I just controlled that conversation.
Hmm.
You see,
Yeah.
we were, and that's all it is just asking questions. So, I guess number two, second thing that I would say for sales is, let's see, what's something I'm trying to keep it.
So you taught me that a big key to sales was asking questions, and then you taught me that it's about what questions that you ask to lead the customer to a probable answer that's in your favor. Now, if you want to give us another one, I think that'd be great, but I'm already ready to buy a Kirby.
So, man, like the training you get in Kirby teaches you that you can sell anything with stuff. I mean, like one of the you big questions, like, doesn't it just make sense? And you notice whenever I want you to say yes, you see what you just did? You shook your head. Mm-hmm. All I did was shake my head and say yes.
Right.
You see that? And it's really hard. It's really hard to do this after an hour of doing this.
Right.
So ask a lot of questions, and if you want someone to shake their head no, you say, no, you really don't want these conditions in the home, do you?
Right. And so essentially it's a process of reflection. So I see you and I'm mimicking you because we're engaged in a discourse, and I wanna be like you. So you shaking your head, yes, I'm gonna shake my head, yes, you shake your head, no. I'm gonna shake my head, no.
It's all psychology. And that's the coolest thing about I love about Kirby is that these are the challenges I have with Asperger's, and these are what we focus on in Kirby. Right. Is the ability to I don't like the word manipulate, but it truly is mind manipulation. And I mean, people will do what you program them to do. That's why TV is called television programming. Right. So the secondary thing I would say in sales is make sure that you put people in the market. So what I see a lot of people doing on social media and other platforms and just in general with their products is trying to push them on you and saying, hey, please check this out. Please buy it. Please buy it. Please buy it. But they don't put you in the market. Like when we come in with a Kirby, we do what's called a comparison test, and we show you and break down firsthand in front of you that no matter what kind of vacuum you have on this planet, if it isn't a Kirby, it don't work.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And we prove that face to face. That's called putting someone in the market. Because if somebody says, I'm just not in the market, that means you haven't created the value and you haven't shown them that your option is the only option for right now. You got to put people in the market right now and make them have to have it now. Because it's like this, Mr. Cedric. If I were to put you on an island and take away all your food in 3 days, if I came with a buffet and told you that it was $1 million to eat it,
right?
What are you gonna do if you had the $1 million?
Yeah, I'm trying to eat it.
You're gonna eat. You're gonna eat. Why? Because you've been put in the market,
right?
For something.
And
so
you know,
it don't matter when you're in the market.
That's right. That's right. You've been full of wisdom today. I wish we had more time, but you know, this is the way that time goes by when you're having a great conversation. To me, I see somebody who grew up to become a social engineer and a role model, not only for yourself, but for others. And I think that that's very commendable. Tucker, we have about a minute and a half left in this broadcast, and I need you to answer 3 questions in that minute and a half.
Go for it.
The first one is, what is survival to you?
Oh, wow. Survival is the opposite of thriving.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Okay. And what is success to you?
Success is health, wealth, and happiness. Having food for me is being able to bless people and having a roof over my head and the breath in my lungs.
What is greatness to you?
Greatness is when someone steps out of their comfort zone and changes someone's life in a way that creates generational change in their world.
Wow. Do you feel that you've created generational change in your family?
I believe so, and I hope so. When I die, I tell people this is my motto, is that if you can be the spark that lights the way through the darkness for even one person a day in any shape, form, or way, it doesn't matter if your name isn't remembered throughout history. Your entire life will be worthwhile.
Awesome. Tucker Bearden, I want to let you know that I admire your story. And it's been a great conversation with you today. I think that your work is admirable. I want to give you your crown while you're still living. And I want to let you know and the world know that you are one of America's next motivators.
Bless you, brother. Thank you for having me on the show.
Without a doubt. Look forward to talking to you soon. I'll see you later, okay?
Adios.
All right. Bye-bye. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another great installment of America's Next Motivator. With each and every episode, we have a powerful, profound conversation. And while you might have to do some digging, there's going to be something here for you. I need you to stop by and pick it up.